Hello dear students, in this video we will solve this question from the electron configuration topic, and the question is which is correct for the line emission spectrum for hydrogen. So here emission spectrum is given for hydrogen and we have to find which option is right. So for solving this question we have to understand this topic. According to this topic, when electrons from the excited state comes back to the lower energy levels or the ground state, then energy is emitted in the form of photon or light. And when this light is spread out on the spectrum, then these lines are generated in the spectrum with respect to their wavelength, right? So these lines are present on the specific lambda value, that is wavelength. And here I have shown the energy level diagram for hydrogen. So these are the energy levels. N is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the energy is increased when we move upwards, which means that this is the lower energy level and these are the higher energy levels, and the energy gap between the higher energy levels is less comparative to the energy gap between the lower energy levels. So this is the energy level diagram, and these are the emissions. These arrows are showing that electron come back to the ground state and energy is released. So these emissions have higher energy gap. We can see that here the energy gap is more comparative to these yellow emissions, right? So these emissions have higher energy, and we know that according to this relation, that is E is equal to hc upon lambda, energy is inversely proportional to lambda, that is wavelength. So if these energy gaps are higher, then we can say that these emissions have lower wavelength and these will have higher wavelength, because here the energy gaps are less and energy is indirectly proportional to the wavelength. So here these emissions will have higher wavelength and these will have lower wavelength, and as these emissions are more, because energy is emitted when the electron is coming back from the higher energy levels to the ground state. So here are the lines exhibited on the emission spectrum will be more, so comparative to these emissions. So as we can see in this line emission spectrum, these lines are close to each other comparative to these lines. So which means this line is of higher wavelength and these lines are of lower wavelength, because these emissions will be more and the difference between these lambda value of these emissions will be less. So M line is of higher wavelength, longer wavelength than line N. So C option will be the right answer. Let's check the mark scheme. Yes, C option is the right. So this is the whole concept behind this question, and this is how we can solve these types of questions. If still you have any inquiry, you can ask me in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. All the best.